They didn't invite me to their wedding because I was too plain, so I sold the land they planned to build their dream house on. My name is Eleanor. I'm 72 years old. And no, this isn't a story about anger or bitterness. It's about something quieter, something deeper. It's about what happens when the people you love the most stop seeing you, and what you do when you finally see yourself again. It started with a mailbox. I must have opened that little metal door a dozen times that week, holding my breath each time like I was still some young girl waiting on a love letter. But there was never anything inside, just cold air and disappointment. My neighbor Joan was the one who brought it up, sweet, chatty Joan who talks louder on the phone than anyone I know. Eleanor, have you seen the wedding invitations yet? Oh my stars, they're just beautiful. Lucas and Vanessa, such a handsome couple. Gold foil and embossed lettering, it's like something from a magazine. I smiled and nodded through the phone, holding back the sting in my throat. Maybe the mail's just running slow, I mumbled, though deep down, I already knew the truth. Because 6 months earlier, I'd overheard Lucas say something he never meant for me to hear. He was talking to someone, I don't even remember who, but his voice was casual, offhand, like he was commenting on the weather. "My mom's lovely," he said, "but she's just too simple for this kind of event." Too simple. I've been called many things in my life, strong, stubborn, steady, but never that. Never in a way that excluded me from my own family. I raised that boy on this land, held him through fevers, packed his lunches, buried his father when he was just a teenager. I've watched this farm freeze and bloom and flood and rise again. And now I wasn't good enough to watch him get married? That was the moment something inside me shifted. It wasn't rage, it wasn't heartbreak. It was something colder, clearer, like waking up. If this story touches something in you, if you've ever felt forgotten by someone you loved, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? The next morning, I took the 6:40 bus into the city, clutching my purse like it held my last thread of pride. It was the one Henry gave me on our 40th anniversary, soft leather, a bit worn at the corners, but still beautiful in its own way. I hadn't told Lucas I was coming. I wanted to look him in the eyes and hear the truth for myself. The receptionist at his law firm looked up from her screen, eyebrows drawn together in polite confusion. "Can I help you?" "I'm Eleanor Bell," I said, adjusting the strap on my shoulder. "Lucas Bell's mother." Her lips parted in surprise before she picked up the phone. "Please have a seat." The waiting area smelled of expensive candles and ambition. I suddenly felt out of place in my neatly pressed blouse and well-loved shoes. My clothes were clean, my hair pulled back the way I always wore it. But under the cold lights, I could feel every year of my age, every wrinkle pressed like history into my skin. Lucas walked in 10 minutes later, looking sharp in a navy suit. He smiled thinly. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I thought I'd stop by," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I wanted to check on something. Joan received your wedding invitation. I haven't gotten mine yet." His expression shifted, like someone who's been caught unprepared. He guided me into a conference room, closing the door behind him. "There's no invitation, Mom." He didn't look angry, just awkward. Vanessa and I agreed. The event is elevated. Her father is bringing in senators, business people. It's black tie. You wouldn't feel comfortable. I stared at him. "You mean I'd embarrass you?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "That's not what I said. It's what you meant." Then he added, as if it were just a passing comment, "We'll be breaking ground on the Nashville property next month, right after the honeymoon. We're planning to build the house there." I blinked. "The land Henry and I bought with my inheritance money? That land still has my name on the deed." He didn't respond. His phone buzzed and he glanced down. "I have to take this. We'll talk more soon, okay?" He walked me to the elevator like I was a client, not his mother. And for the first time, I didn't feel invisible, I felt underestimated. And that somehow was worse. That evening back at home, I couldn't settle. I wandered into Henry's study, a room I hadn't touched since the funeral. His reading glasses still sat on the desk, the pages of his farm ledger frozen mid-sentence. I opened a drawer at random, and there it was, a sealed envelope with my name on it in his handwriting. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a birthday card I never received. He had passed away 3 days before my 67th birthday. "Never forget your worth, Ellie," he'd written. "That land is yours as much as mine. I bought it with your family's money because I trusted your judgment. Lucas may have charm, but he doesn't always have wisdom. If he ever tries to claim it's his, remember what we built. Protect it. Protect yourself." Tears came, not from sadness, but from something older, a waking up. I didn't sleep much that night. But by sunrise, I had a list. Carla, a real estate broker and an old friend from school. Diane, an attorney who specialized in elder law. And Joe, from 2 farms down, a man I'd known for decades, but only ever waved to across fence lines. Joe showed up that afternoon with a basket of tomatoes and hands weathered from both labor and loss. When I told him what had happened, his face didn't twist in surprise. It softened, like someone recognizing his own story inside mine. "My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 5 years," he said as we drank tea on my porch. "Married into politics. Suddenly I was too rough around the edges. Said I wouldn't look right at her husband's campaign dinners." I stared at him, stunned. "I'm so sorry," he shrugged. "I used to think it was just a phase, but some people don't grow out of shame, they grow into it." We sat in silence, but it wasn't the awkward kind. It was the silence of 2 people who didn't need to explain their pain. That evening I called Carla. She agreed to quietly assess the land's value. Diane said she'd review the deed and help me understand my legal standing. And Joe? He stayed long after the sun went down, helping me repair a squeaky screen door and checking the barn roof for rot. He didn't try to fix me, just the things I couldn't reach. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone in my grief. I felt seen. And something inside me, the part I'd put away to make room for motherhood, for marriage, for other people's dreams, started to wake up. Not in a blaze, but in slow, steady steps. Like roots finding their way back to the earth. I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my own son, build their future on ground they thought I had forgotten how to stand on. A week after speaking with Carla, she called back, her voice carrying both awe and urgency. "Ellie, do you have any idea what that Nashville land is worth now?" she asked. "Developers are circling like hawks. With the city pushing eastward, your land sits right in the new golden zone. We're talking millions." I nearly dropped the phone. Turns out, it wasn't just coincidence that Lucas suddenly wanted to build there. It wasn't about sentiment or family legacy. It was business, and not just his. A company named Sinclair Developments, owned by none other than Thomas Whitmore, Vanessa's father, had already filed preliminary plans for a luxury residential community that overlapped my parcel. They had submitted zoning requests and engineering surveys without ever talking to the woman who still held the title. The gall of it would have knocked me flat if I hadn't already been standing. That same week, I got an unexpected message online from a young woman named Emma Whitmore. "I found some old photos of Lucas with your family," she wrote. "I don't know why, but I felt compelled to reach out. Would you like to meet for coffee?" Emma was Vanessa's younger sister, but she didn't carry herself like the rest of them. No air of polished perfection, no rehearsed small talk, just honesty. She wore jeans and no makeup, and she sipped her coffee like someone with nothing to prove. We talked for hours about families that value appearances over love, about being too emotional or too simple to fit their world. When she spoke of her mother, who was quietly placed in a care facility and never visited again, I felt a chill run through me. Then she said the thing that changed everything. "My father's been meeting with lawyers," she admitted. "There's talk of declaring you mentally unfit to handle such valuable property. It's how they get what they want without making a mess." I thanked her with shaking hands. That night I made 3 calls. First to Diane, who immediately began setting up medical evaluations to document my cognitive health. Second, to Carla, who connected me to a team at Bridgestone Development, a company known for its ethical practices and eco-friendly projects. Third, to Joe. "Would you help me start something here?" I asked him on my porch under the dusk sky. "Something real. Just a patch of heirloom vegetables, maybe. I want to prove that this land still matters as it is, not just as concrete and profits." He didn't even blink. "Tell me where to dig." While Diane handled the legal framework and Carla negotiated discreetly, Joe and I turned my old pasture into something living again. We planted tomatoes the size of fists, rows of butter lettuce, purple carrots from seed. Word spread through town, and before long, I had neighbors stopping by to place orders. I even bought a couple new dresses, simple, well-fitted, quietly confident. With Emma's help, I set up a social media page. I posted pictures of my crops, shared updates on the farm, reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in decades. I was still me, but now I took up space. It didn't take long for word to circle back. Lucas and Vanessa showed up one morning, all sharp edges and forced smiles. "Mom, we heard you've been busy," Lucas started. "You've had appraisers on the property?" "Yes," I said calmly. "I've also had doctors evaluate my mental health, fully documented in case anyone's curious." Vanessa's expression cracked for the first time. Later that week, Thomas Whitmore arrived at my door in a luxury sedan that looked embarrassed to be parked on my gravel drive. He handed me a leather folder. "We're prepared to offer you 8% of projected profits," he said, smiling like a man who thought he was doing me a favor. I flipped through the glossy renderings. 8% for land I own outright? I looked up and smiled. "That's bad math, Mr. Whitmore," he bristled. "This could be a difficult process, Mrs. Bell, emotionally exhausting, perhaps risky. I've worked this land through droughts, floods, and the year Henry broke his back, and I baled every field by myself. I can handle difficult." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't storm. I let his silence hang. Days later, the wedding was called off. I heard it through Emma first, then confirmed it when I saw the headline, "High-profile wedding canceled amid legal uncertainty around development project." And then one rainy afternoon, Lucas pulled into my driveway, not in his sports car, but in a rental, carrying nothing but a single suitcase and soaked shoulders. He stood on the porch like a boy again. "They were using me, Mom," he said, voice shaking. "All of them. I didn't want to believe it, but I saw the contracts, the offshore funnels. I was never going to have a piece of it. They just needed me to get to you." I handed him a towel without a word, put the kettle on, and pulled down 2 mugs. I didn't forgive him that day, but I listened. And that was a start. I never wanted vengeance. That was never the point. What I wanted, what I needed, was to take back what had quietly been taken from me over the years. My voice, my agency, my name on the deed, yes, but also the dignity behind it. With Diane's help, I accepted Bridgestone's revised proposal. Not the highest bidder, but the most honest one. The contract included clauses to preserve 1/3 of the land for environmental education and heritage crops, and a generous portion of the funds went toward restoring my farmhouse and barn to working condition. The rest? I put it into a scholarship fund for young people from rural communities who wanted to study sustainable agriculture. Joe and I named it after Henry, the Henry Bell Foundation for Honest Land Work. Emma offered to help manage it. She'd left her father's company without fanfare, choosing peace over pretense. And now, she was blooming in her own right. Lucas moved into a small rental not far from town. He visits once a week, always on time, sleeves rolled up. We don't talk about the wedding or the Whitmores much. We talk about the soil, about the new students we've funded, about the tomato varieties he's learning to plant. Slowly, we are becoming family again, not out of obligation, but choice. And Joe, well, he never left. His hands, once calloused by years of building bridges and barns, now wrap around mine like they were meant to. On warm evenings, we sit on the porch and watch fireflies rise from the fields. We don't need to speak. The land speaks for us. My husband once wrote, "Never forget your worth, Eleanor," I told Joe the other night, resting my head against his shoulder. For a while, I did. But the moment I remembered it, everything else began to bloom again. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, share it. There's always someone out there who needs to remember their worth too. Until next time, stay strong and never be afraid to take up space.